country's second largest trade union federation, has called for a general strike tomorrow. It's the first time since Saftu was founded. And while other federations will not participate, the country's biggest union, Numsa, has urged its members to join the action. To discuss the implications of this, we are now joined by Labour Analyst Healy. Tony, thank you so much for coming through. So it appears that at the heart of all of this is the dissatisfaction around this national minimum wage, which has been pushed back, whose implementation rather has been pushed back. It was meant to come in on the 1st of May. What are the fundamental points of difference here?
Well, I think that the minimum wage is an issue, as are various other aspects relating to the amendments of other labour laws. But Saftu would say to us that they believe that the current minimum being envisaged in the minimum wage is too little. And that's where they're out of sync with Fedusa, Kasatu and business.
And what's your view about that? Because, you know, they tend to, Saftu and the unions like Numsa break it down to say, you know, the big figure you're given is 3,500 rand. Well, actually, there are various categories of workers, and not everyone will get to 3,500 rand a month when you come down to what each category of worker is paid per hour.
Yes. Look, my own personal view is that in principle minimum wages are a good thing. However, when you sit with such a high unemployment rate as we do, I believe that it's an inappropriate initiative for now. You know, when you have full employment, it makes more sense to have a minimum wage to protect the vulnerable, let's say. But there's no doubt in my mind that when you introduce a minimum wage in present circumstances, it will only serve to further increase unemployment.
But will we ever get to full employment? And I know that's a very tricky, economics question.
Yes.
And in the meantime, we're dealing with a situation where, on the face of it, inflation seems to be in check. But actually, if you look at what has happened this year alone, workers, those who happen to be employed, will find themselves under an even tighter squeeze. Hence, the question of can they afford their living with the wages that they get right now?
Look, certainly, when you look at the cost of living and minimum wages, 3,000 or 3,500 rand or even 5,500 rand is too little. I think my concern is, as a practitioner, is that minimum wage legislation ignores the plight of the unemployed. So we have a vast population of unemployed individuals, especially in the youth bracket. And, you know, it's fine to have a minimum wage for the employed, but we have probably close to 40% unemployment. And whilst one focuses on the minimum wage for those employed, it increases the barrier of entry for the unemployed to get into the labour market.
But aren't, you know, arguments for a minimum wage bolstered by the fact that, you know, there does seem to be, you know, there's disparities when you consider what the captains of industries, industry and capital take for themselves, and bonuses and these big pay packages that they take. So it's certainly an argument that a union like Numsa raises.
Yes, I think that's right. I mean, these minimum wages look extremely poor if you look at the grotesque wages that are paid to directors and bonuses and what have you. I think that's a different argument that needs to somewhere, somehow be addressed as well. But again, it's my own view that we'll never get to full employment. But when we're sitting at such an extraordinarily high and stubborn unemployment rate, introducing minimum wages is, I think, problematic. I look at our client base and we can see there's no doubt about it. We're going to see fairly widespread retrenchment and a definite greater move where possible towards automation. And that's going to result in increased job losses. And yes, for those who are employed, who are earning 3,500 or more, whatever it ends up being, that's kind of moving in the right direction for them, but the wrong direction for the unemployed.
Interesting. So let's talk a bit about these, you know, these amendments to labor legislation, things such as the Labor Relations Act and the Basic Conditions of Employment Act. The key issues seem to be around the issue of the right to strike. The unions feeling that the right to strike, which is a democratic right, is under threat. What do you make of that argument?
Well, I don't think that's true at all. And you need to look, first of all, at there are three federations. There's FEDUSA, COSATU, and Saftu. So if you look at COSATU, they've signed on to this amendment. FEDUSA have supported this amendment. And if you look at the number of members in FEDUSA and COSATU, they far outnumber the Saftu membership, probably by 4 to 1. So we have to say that then that the vast majority of unionists, let's say, in the country support these developments, and the minority in the form of Saftu don't. And I think Saftu is exaggerating the impact. I mean, all that's really going to happen is, in terms of the strike-related amendments, is number one, the conciliation period to resolve strikes extends by 5 days. I'm not too sure how that can be a bad thing, because it's promoting conciliation. Secondly, there are secret strike ballots to make sure that when strikers go on strike, it has indeed the support of the majority of the members. And again, I can't see how that delays a strike. I can't see how that impedes on the right to strike.